And I wanted to pause here for a moment as well and turn to Kevin and Steve and get your kind of take on the whole architecture discussion. My take is architectures on paper kind of make for very interesting technical conversations. But in the end, and tell me what you think, I think people actually purchase products that work well in their environments rather than architectures as they're kind of described on paper. Is there meaning of an architecture on paper to enterprises? How something works, what's distributed where, all that, or is it a matter of, gee, that sounds good, but let me test it in my environment and make sure that what seems intuitive on paper actually works in my building?
Joni, I love the question because I think that there's a combination of the architecture and then the actual implementation. And what we tend to see over and over is that people may or may not have a planned architecture, but then the question is, if they have an architecture, are they actually following it as well? That's kind of my 2 cents worth. Kevin, how are you looking at this?
Totally agree, Stephen. And I'll put another another discussion point out there. I think, Joni, to your question, the architecture really becomes something that enterprises take seriously in the early part of design.
Yes.
If and when that architecture actually provides them a benefit. So there are multiple ways to architect a network today. Some of them, have some benefit, perhaps to the IT administrator. One of the new ways we've all been talking about today is this all wireless network topology. Where you utilize mesh to potentially save the cabling cost, et cetera. That's a new network architecture, and it's a unique one. I won't deny it's not it's new to the industry, but I'll tell you we've had some very significant discussions with some very significant customers on how that is very attractive, and it provides them the cost benefit that makes them look at that architecture before actually going into deployment.
So a little bit of the takeaway that I think I heard you just say, Kevin, is that an architecture, be it fully centralized, fully distributed, part centralized, part distributed, et cetera, might attract an enterprise customer maybe in the evaluation stage and make a difference in their short list of who they're going to actually test and evaluate.
I think so, Joni.
And then in the end, it just has to be proven through.
Correct. I think most customers today do have an architecture of record that they're running on, and any new architectures obviously require a cost-benefit analysis because it's a change. Their IT group has to learn a new architecture in order to support it, and I think that where we see the controller-based versus the independent-based architectures, I think those discussions have gone on, and for the most part, most enterprises have settled on primarily, as the data indicates, the centralized approach. But the intelligence in the APs does bring value, does bring benefit. There's a cost-benefit analysis there as well. And then you couple that with a totally different way of networking enterprises, which is this all-wireless concept. And I think you can get some pretty interesting discussions with customers, and they really take a hard look at that topology before they deploy in today's new 802.11n reality.
Gotcha. Okay, moving on. I just included slide 8 on the scalability challenges as representative of what I mentioned early on in the discussion about some things remaining constant over the years. And certainly security remains high on the list of organizations' challenges in general, and also in scalability in particular. So with 47% citing general security concerns as one of their 2 biggest challenges, this factor has remained consistently the top challenge for the 5 years that this survey has been conducted. And this is in spite of advances such as WPA2, which has a very strong AES encryption method, rogue monitoring, embedded firewalls in APs, and other strong security advances. So I just kind of wanted to throw out to the group, my take on doing years of these surveys and interviewing enterprise IT staff regularly is not that the industry thinks that security hasn't really been solved technically. I get more of the impression that it's about their confidence levels of properly deploying all the layers of security that are needed, getting it right with no misconfigurations, and then continually auditing the environments to make sure that no holes break open. Are there ways to automate that process or ease it, or other ways to reassure enterprises about being very effective in their deployment and maintenance of the various layers of security? Anybody have any ideas about that?
Sure, Joni, I'll take a cut at that one. Security is, as the data shows, absolutely top of mind for every customer we speak with, and I think that there's a couple of things in the marketplace. There's a perception that regardless of what the data might show, perception that wireless is just by nature not a very secure medium. And it is, if not architected properly. We go back to the architecture. There's another good tie-in. When you design a network, you do need to design it with security in mind. And today's security tools, if you really think about it, the portfolio of security tools on wireless that's in the market today far exceeds that of wired. And it's had to. Yeah, absolutely. This industry's had to do that. I will share with you that not all enterprises are utilizing that full portfolio of tools for a number of reasons. Some have been perhaps a little clumsy, the early versions, and difficult to manage. Some have actually reduced throughput in some cases. Now, for the most part, I'm talking about the early security solutions. Most of those bugs have long been taken care of. And today's security tools are certainly very robust, do not disrupt either manageability or productivity. But I think what the industry is clamoring for is something that we're certainly beginning to bring to market in Motorola, and that is really an embedded security product within the infrastructure. Your description is a great one. It's layers. And as opposed to a layer of security on top of a layer of wireless infrastructure. By the way, on top of a wired infrastructure, which is today's world, we're beginning to collapse that, what I like to call a three-layer cake, into a one-layer cake. And that'll make it, I think, easier for enterprises going forward, give them more confidence, and certainly make it more cost-effective to manage and deploy.
I'll also mention, though, that it is interesting that cost is so far down on the list here, and I see that as being very encouraging going forward.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's about midway down the list.